Member for Blacktown.
Speaker, I've rise to support this bill, but I have never heard so much crap in my life that's been echoed in here. And it's like the standard speaking points, that are coming out here. I just can't, fathom where people are coming up with these ideas. They're talking about, how dare union officials have access to payroll records.
That's right.
Payroll systems. Sorry, they say systems. Does the Liberal Party actually still think that today, in this modern era, that the vast majority of small businesses still buy the old wages book and open it up and for the union official to have a look at? Most of the records these days have MYOB or some type of computer program. I'm just amazed. Let's look at the member for Willoughby. Gets up and says here that in his second response speech to the wonderful minister, says that this bill puts at risk the data of every person across our great state. It risks jobs, innovations and so much more, exposing businesses and communities to serious privacy and cyber security risks. Cyber security. Have you seen our union officials? I was one. We're just marginally above the typewriter era, and you're expecting our union officials that walk in there who are worried about people's rights and safety, who would negotiate people's enterprise agreements, and they do that so well, but somehow at night time, at midnight, they go home and they learn how to do cyber espionage, to log into systems, to go to these employers, to find some type of secret formula for the spices that KFC has so they can release it to the world or something. I don't know where the opposition's coming through. And then this part, which I agree with the member for Willoughby, where he talks about, yes, digital technologies, artificial intelligence and algorithms and automations are playing an increasing role in how society is allocated, monitored and managed. Those trends raise legitimate questions about psychosocial risks, excessive workload, surveillance and fairness. Don't you love the Liberal Party where in 1 minute they say, how dare anyone look at any of these records, keep it all away. But finally they actually, the member for Willoughby and most of the Liberal speakers that have got up here, or the Nats, get up and suddenly also, by the way, we do recognise that the average person has been infringed their rights and have come in here. Let's look at some of the evidence. Let's look at, for instance, working from home. I know so many people jumped on board about working from home, but how's that working for most of our workers these days? Employers can use various monitoring methods, including software, cameras, video, audio surveillance systems, GPS, tracking and biometric technology. Oh, but the member for Willoughby says, wait, let's just wait, just because the employers are using all this stuff on our poor worker that's sitting at home in their lounge room or in their bedroom, doing their in their home office, doing their work, they get reported because these days they can work out if your eyes are flickering away from the screen. If you want to go have a toilet break in your own home, you can get into trouble for that. That's why we're introducing these rules. You don't need to have fingerprint technology and retina scanning by the employer. Let's think about it. If you're worried about cyber security of the employer, what about the individuals? Retina scanning and fingerprinting. The most important identity you have on your body, literally, can now be accessed by your employer. And let's face it, we see how most systems, whether they're government, whether they're NASA, whether they're military or whatever, how many systems get broken into around the world. Do you think our little hairdresser in the back of Doonside there has the cyber security systems to block someone from accessing their fingerprint technology that they're storing of their workers there? Well, we've got to get some reality here. In the end, what we need is really to work through these laws in a proper way. And we have a situation where some of the stuff that the Liberals and led by the member for Willoughby starts talking about is that union officials can just walk in there and grab any information they want. If you actually read the Act that's being proposed, Section 21A, the duties and responsibility, or the duties of the person conducting the businesses or undertaking, it says Part 2, 21A2, that the person conducting the business or undertaking consider whether the allocation of work or by using a digital work system creates or results in risks as excessive or unreasonable workloads. So that's what the union official's actually looking at data, looking at information, not looking at the secret formula and spices that you may have there. It's not looking at your customer records. There's nothing about that. And at the moment, and sorry to scare everyone off, but this is really to a certain extent a marginal amendment, because actually if you look at, as soon as I find it, the spice recipe, no, the access for information, because at the moment, what it talks about in the actual Act, so we're not amending this part, in the Act says you have record that and it's not just union officials, it's the safety people as well, have access to information on site that the employer has to provide. But it also talks about that the employer, that the union official or the PCU has the right to access a computer. And all this law is basically saying is now the information that's contained on the computer in relation to the safety issue. A union official or anybody else cannot look at any other data. Yes, they can look at payroll records. Guess what? They probably have those details. They know where the worker is. They're there to assess there. And the thing that the opposition are not really taking on board is the challenges that we've seen over the years where if you're looking at, for instance, why do we have these rules? They say there that the 850,000 small businesses that are operating in New South Wales, they're all fabulous businesses, which they are. They're trying their best. And yet, if we look at the data, the Australian employees have missed out on $5 billion in super contributions in the financial year of 2018-19. That's the latest that's available. That we see so many people that are underpaid, $1,700. That's why, and yet they get away with it. Do we have a union official that can go to every single site to make sure that the super is paid? No. And what impact does this have? We've seen workers that, one particular worker, and according to the ABC report on the 28th of October back in 21, contracted life-threatening bacterial infection. He was a casual on no sick pay or annual leave. He then wanted to claim total and permanent disability from his superannuation fund. But the employer had ceased paying into this account, ceased paying him super. So not only did he lose $20,000 in lost super, but he lost $60,000 from having access to the TPD. This is why people need to have access, and at least there's 800,000 small businesses. I doubt if you even have 500 union officials in New South Wales. That's one union official has to go to 1,000 businesses. And actually, union officials look after their members in the first instance. And the percentage is less than 20% of the workforce are members of a union. So the vast majority of 850,000 businesses probably have never seen a union official. And I've been a union official. I actually, with the Australian Workers' Union, looked after hairdressers. And actually, most times when I went in, the initial response was quite negative when I turned up to a small business hairdressing. That's their fault. They delivered the haircut to me. But once you start talking to them, because my job was essentially just to make sure that wages are being paid, super's being done, and people are working to make sure the outcome.
Can you use a computer?
Well, they had the wages book, so we could look at the book and take. We couldn't even photocopy it. We didn't even have iPhones back in those days to take a picture of it. So I had to ask them to go to the local library so we can. But the information that you have access. Thanks, Minister, for distracting me there. But if the employer says no, you go to the Industrial Relations Commission. Actually, before you even go to court, the Industrial Relations Commission, there's a step before it. You go. Madam Speaker, seek an extension.
The member seeks an extension of time. Is the extension granted?
Kind of.
Yes.
But before, so let's assume that you turn up, the union official turns up and asks for information and the employer says no. What happens? Can we just barge in and somehow log on to the system? Yeah, I doubt it. We wouldn't know the password or whatever to get in there.
They're claiming that you're going to steal the computer.
Oh, I'm going to pick up the computer. Yeah. It's all in the cloud, so it doesn't matter if you pick up the computer these days. You still don't have access to it. So if the employer says no to the information, so firstly, you're requesting the information. You can't. Yes, you may want to demand it, but you can. It's basically a request. If the employer says no, then it's it to a certain extent, Minister. What then happens is that you can then request for the regulator to come, which then ensures. So a government employee, WorkSafe, will come out and then try to go through the issue. And don't forget, we're talking about a safety issue.
From the Act.
From the Act. We're not looking at the person's cyber cryptic formulas or customer bases or which are the bad or the opponents that they're going to take out. Yeah, none of that. It's about the person's safety. How are you making them work? How are you making them work? So the regulator will come out. So the regulator can look at it. Guess what? It's the employer that shows you the information. You're, as a union official, very rarely will be touching anything. I went to plenty of work sites where the employer would come out and it's death by PowerPoint, 62 slides saying how safe they are. And yet in some of the situations I was at, and I remember the great Yossi Berger, God rest his soul, what a wonderful WHS officer he was for the AWU. I remember I was with him and one at a major glass factory where workers were catching on fire, being next to a blast furnace there at 700 degrees as the bottles are coming down. And we were trying to work out why, but the employer gave us, literally 60 PowerPoint slides. We got to about 5 and Yossi couldn't handle it any longer. Slammed a desk and said, there's people dying out there. He used a few adjectives, which I won't use in the Parliament. People are dying out. Don't give us PowerPoint presentation. Don't give us excuses. Let's work through the issue. So the regulator is the first point that will come out. If that doesn't work out and there's still problems, that's when you go to the Industrial Relations Commission, which I suppose in the old terminology, for those who weren't union officials, may call it the Industrial Relations Court or something else. But it's just a commission, predominantly informal. The first step. And I think actually, I love the technical term in the Act when you go to the thing, go to the commission, it actually talks about the thing. Very technical, I love that legal word in there, that when you have a thing, a problem in the workplace, you can register it, go into the court or the Industrial Relations Commission. It's by, firstly, conciliation, then mediation, then arbitration. Can you imagine our local hairdresser? All these Liberals and Nats are getting up here and saying, my little local hairdresser or nail technician, they don't need lawyers. I can't see how any of them are going to be affected. I think one of the other things was the tradie. Can't understand how a tradie will be affected by cybersecurity issues by the union official. The whole thing is just basically, is the person working? Yeah, what factors are being, is the person unfairly being treated in the workplace? Is there excessive monitoring? Are they putting the cameras on that person while they're working at home? Are they monitoring by measuring their heart rate and how fast they're working when they're in a warehouse? And let's face it, we are now heading, if we don't do these changes, we are heading down quickly an area where hopefully it's true, I don't know, according to the media reports in China, they actually have a board, a ladder that tells you who's the pick and packers. The bottom 5 get sacked every day. Are we heading into that society? Is that what the Liberals and that's expecting from us, that we allow anything for the employer and the workers are screwed non-stop? You know, it's ridiculous the what they're putting up here. The minister has put in a balance, is only adding a minor amendment that, apart from looking at the computer, that you can have access to the software that actually looks at how work is distributed. That is the change in this legislation. None of the other stuff that the other side is talking about. Thank you.